mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin pledged loyalty to the Russian government in a Kremlin meeting with President Vladimir Putin 5 days after the commander led a short-lived rebellion, a senior government spokesman said Monday, the latest twist in a baffling episode that has raised questions about the power and influence both men wield. The 3-hour meeting took place June 29th and also involved commanders from Prigozhin's Wagner Group military contractor, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said. Putin gave an assessment of Wagner's actions on the battlefield in Ukraine, where the mercenaries have fought alongside Russian troops, and of the revolt itself. The commanders themselves presented their version of what happened. They underscored that they are staunch supporters and soldiers of the head of state and the commander-in-chief, and also said that they are ready to continue to fight for their homeland, Peskov said. The confirmation that Putin met face-to-face with Prigozhin, who led troops on a march to Moscow last month to demand a military leadership change, was extraordinary. Though the Russian leader branded Prigozhin a traitor as the revolt unfolded and vowed harsh punishment, the criminal case against the mercenary chief on rebellion charges was later dropped. Prigozhin has not commented on the Kremlin meeting, and his ultimate fate remains unclear, particularly since Monday's announcement shows much is negotiated behind closed doors. He could still face prosecution for financial wrongdoing or other charges. Monday's announcement came as Russia's defense ministry published a video featuring military chief General Valery Gerasimov, who was one of the targets of Prigozhin's rebellion. It was the first time Gerasimov has been seen since the revolt. Read more: Russia's top generals disappear from public view after failed Wagner rebellion. The twin updates appeared to be another attempt by the Kremlin to show that it is in control after a turbulent period, and to reflect Putin's delicate balance between condemning the biggest threat to his 23-year rule and the man behind it while not alienating a popular figure whose troops scored the biggest battlefield victory for Russia in the past year of the war. Master of the situation. Former Putin speechwriter Abbas Galyamov told the Associated Press that Putin acknowledges Prigozhin's patriotism and needs his forces on the front line, while Prigozhin needs Putin to ensure his freedom from prosecution. The two are negotiating as allies, with Prigozhin escaping punishment, Galyamov said. Prigozhin emerged victorious from this rebellion, Galyamov said in a Zoom interview from Tel Aviv. He has shown himself to be the master of the situation. Adding to the unusual nature of the meeting was that until very recently, Putin had denied any link between the state and Prigozhin's forces. Mercenaries are illegal in Russia, but Wagner troops have fought for Russian interests around the globe and played a vital role in the capture of Bakhmut in the war's longest and bloodiest battle. Putin has confirmed that Prigozhin's companies operated under government contracts. Throughout the war, Prigozhin has criticized decisions made by Russia's top military brass, leading to tensions with the Kremlin that culminated in the June 24th rebellion. The rebellion severely weakened Putin's authority, even though Prigozhin claimed the uprising was not aimed at the president but at removing defense ministers Sergei Shoigu and Gerasimov. Prigozhin called off his mutiny after a deal was brokered for him to go to Belarus. Read more: Shoigu and Gerasimov, masters of Putin's wars. Mark Galeotti, an author who heads the consulting firm Mayak Intelligence, said the delicate dance with Prigozhin is a further compromise on Putin's part and reflects his unwillingness to take tough and ruthless personnel decisions. He is willing to see Ukrainians bombed by the dozen, but not confront any of the figures in his own circle, Galeotti wrote in The Spectator. Tatiana Stanovaya, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center, predicted that some Russian observers would be stunned by the turn of events. When you look from the point of view of Russian elite, it's ridiculous, she told the AP. It's just so unbelievable and just so shocking.
Prigozhin plane footage tells us from a former UK military pilot.
Knows a little bit
Was
about
the private
planes,
jet believed to be carrying Yevgeny Prigozhin
these
brought down,
hypothetical
and what
scenarios,
exactly
Sean.
happened
So
to
just
him?
talk.
Several theories have been put forward as to what may have caused the plane to come hurtling to the ground as it travelled from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Using footage of the crash which has emerged online, military analyst and former pilot Sean Bell points to 4 key things it shows that may provide hints as to what likely happened to the aircraft. 1. A missile strike. One image shows a swirl of cloud which doesn't sit comfortably against the rest, Bell says. Drawing on his own experience of flying Corvair aircraft, he explains that if a surface-to-air missile hit the plane, you would see that sort of vapor trail in the final stages of its approach. Therefore, either that could be an explosion or it could be a surface-to-air missile system, he says. 2. Smoke as plane plummets. Bell highlights what appears to be a trail of smoke coming from the wreckage of the plane around halfway into its descent. He says this is almost certainly not smoke and is probably fuel venting. It's a large quantity that is a massive damage to the aircraft that's caused that, he adds. 3 and 4. Missing wing or tail in the air and debris on the ground. Image video footage apparently shows the plane missing a tail or wing. Footage of the plane closer to the ground appears to show it without its wing or its tail, which could explain why it came down vertically, not unlike a falling leaf. The fourth point Bell notes is that other pictures from the crash site show the tail some distance from the main part of the aircraft. Now, you put all of that together, there's lots of reasons why that might have occurred, but that is not a natural accident, Bell explains. Image wreckage of the plane seen near the crash site in the Tver region, Russia. That is a catastrophe that's happened in the air. There were rumors that a case of wine containing a bomb was put on the aircraft at the last minute. The trouble with that theory is that, generally speaking, an explosion inside an aircraft blows it out, whereas a surface-to-air missile system or an air-to-air missile system generally tries to seek out the juiciest, meatiest part of an aircraft. That would explain why it potentially could rip a wing off. And as soon as it did that, the fate of the aircraft was sealed. Is there a link to Putin? Asked why, if he was behind the crash, Vladimir Putin didn't target Prigozhin sooner after the short-lived mutiny 2 months ago, Bell said systematically, President Putin has been dismembering the Wagner boss business ever since. Tellingly, it was a couple of days ago where we saw the last video image of Yevgeny Prigozhin in a field, potentially in Africa, alone. He wasn't surrounded by anybody else. All of a sudden, Prigozhin looks a slightly sad man alone and watching his empire dismembered. And at that stage, most military analysts were saying, this is the end. President Putin is acting as judge, jury and executioner, and he is no more. That's what we're led to believe. What do we know about what happened? The Embraer Legacy 600 plane was traveling from Moscow to St. Petersburg on Wednesday. Flight tracking website Flightradar24 says it first received data from the aircraft at 2:46 p.m. local time. Image Yevgeny Prigozhin's jet was traveling away from Moscow and crashed near Tver. Pic Flightradar24. The aircraft climbed to a cruising altitude of 28,000 feet between 2:59 p.m. and 3:11 p.m. 9 minutes later, it had stopped transmitting data. Even though the aircraft was not transmitting position information, other data like altitude, speed, vertical rate, and autopilot settings were broadcast. It is this data that provides some insight into the final moments of the flight, Flightradar24 said. At 3:19 p.m., the aircraft descended briefly before climbing to a maximum altitude of 30,100 feet. Image altitude data shows what happened to Prigozhin's jet. Pic Flightradar24. It then descended back to roughly 27,500 feet before climbing and then leveling off again. It then started to descend sharply, with the final data showing it at 19,725 feet.
Take place on Tuesday, according to the Kremlin. Details of how he will be laid to rest are being kept secret, so supporters have been bringing flowers to unofficial memorials in Russian cities.
Без них у нас на фронте было все очень плохо. И поэтому мы, конечно, сейчас всем скорбим. Это такая утрата.
Для нас они, для меня лично герои, которые, пример для русских людей, которые переживают за свою страну.
Some media reports suggest the funeral might happen at the Serenovskoye cemetery in St. Petersburg, prompting Wagner supporters to gather there. As a bearer of the title Hero of Russia, Prigozhin must be buried with special honors, but the government hasn't confirmed where or when this will happen.